4th episode of Philosophies of Food. I'm your host, Chris Harrison, and as I promised, we've come closer to home this week, and we're going to be making my version of macaroni and cheese. A comfort food for the soul, classic all the way through history. Thomas Jefferson served it at the White House, still popular in the southern U.S., while Kraft Canada supposedly sells over 1 million boxes a day. But I'm going to show you what I think is a much better way to enjoy this treat. Now, just since nobody ever actually watches the end of the show, I'm going to tell you right now, I am setting up a list for all of you who want to watch the show more, but you never know when the new episode's coming out. I do have a mailing list. The address will show up at the end of the segment. Just fire an email, says add me or whatever you want. Also, if you want tips, recipes, if you want to see me make something. So like I said, let's get started. Making macaroni and cheese tonight for just standard, out of the box, dried macaroni. Cost you $1.50, and well, you got a lot of macaroni to get through. Featured drink for tonight, as I said, this is the Canadian night. Big Rock Warthog Ale. Because nothing's more Canadian than beer. Maybe whiskey and moose, but since I'm from Lethbridge, I decided the Southern American brewery, Southern Canadian brewery, Big Rock. Alright, brought our water to a nice boil. Throw our pasta in and bake that up. I'm sure all of you know this first step. It's just like making real KD. So I'm going to let this go for 15 minutes, and then we'll do the fun part, the sauce. See you guys then. Alright, so pasta's just getting all nice and done. Now you can get it to the same place you do when you usually make KD, because we're not really going to be cooking it in the sauce. So just take that off the heat. Now if you have a colander, the best way to do it is just throw it in the sink. And you can actually just leave it there, because the pasta's going to retain a lot of its heat for quite a while. I don't have a colander, so I'm just going to leave it in a bowl on the counter until we need it again. Now, you can do this at the same time if you want. Do your sauce in one pan, do your macaroni in another. But, you know, this is all about student cooking. I only feel like using one pan saves you the dish. Macaroni and cheese is supposed to be easy, right? Alright, so let's get our sauce going. First thing we're going to do is we're going to melt up a little bit of butter. If you cut the butter into smaller cubes when you melt it, it'll melt faster and a little bit more evenly. Because you want it to just melt, you don't want it to brown up at all. What we're going to do with the butter is add equal amounts of flour, and a little bit of salt to it. Once it's melted, and that's what's known as a roux, which is your base for really any cream sauce. It's what's going to thicken your cream and give it that real nice creamy consistency. So once the butter's melted, just throw in our flour. There we go. And mix it up, and we get something kind of like that. We'll leave that on the heat just for a minute. It's going to activate all the natural starches that are in the flour. I'm going to grab my milk. Now, depending on the sauce, if you're making like a red sauce, say for like lobster bisque or some kind of a soup, what you want to do is you want to cook your roux long enough that it starts to brown. Since we're making the cheese sauce and any other light sauces, you want it to just come to a little bit of a simmer. And slowly start adding your milk to it. If you have a hot roux, you want to add cold milk to it. If you have a cold roux that you've made up a little while ago, you want to add hot milk to it. The difference in temperature is what's going to make this whole thing get that velvety texture. Now, I've done about a tablespoon of butter and flour to 1.5 cups of milk. That's the consistency I like. Now, if you find it's too thick or too thin, just adjust accordingly. You are going to add more flour, however, to thicken it up. You're going to want to mix it out with a little bit of water or a little bit of melted butter in the microwave. Otherwise, it's going to get chunky and you're going to have these little puffs, which are just going to be disgusting. There we go. You're going to bring your milk to a boil with the roux in it, because as of right now, all that's going to taste like is milk and flour, which is no good. And if we throw the cheese in right now, it's just going to taste like cheese and flour. So we're going to cook a little bit of that flour taste out of it. While we're doing that, we're also going to season our milk, and I'm going to tell you guys a little story. Now, I'm choosing to use chili peppers. We're going to use chipotle powder, and this is an Anaheim pepper, which I don't have a lot of experience with, but experimentation is half the fun. Alright. Now, like most of us, and especially any of us that have ever been to the States, I'm guessing, know, we all remember that old song, Yankee Doodle, right? Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his hat, and called it macaroni. Well, for the longest time when I was young, I always thought that was just, just a silly song that taught little kids to give them giggles. But it turns out that those are the actual words, and there's quite a history behind that song. Both behind the Yankee Doodles and a group in the States actually called the Macaronis. Now, pre-revolution America, you'd have young Englishmen that would, before they became landowners in the lot, this obviously is referring to the wealthy at the time, would travel back to England and go around Europe and become acquainted with the customs and the food and the cuisine and the fashion, and would just fall in love with Europe. And when they got back, there'd be these dainty Englishmen. And so as a slang, because of their, I guess, love of Paris, they were called macaronis, which they really sort of held on to. It wasn't as much of a denigrative term. Whereas the Yankees, specifically the Yankee Doodle, comes from a combination of a sort of bastardized Dutch word for English and a German word for dumbass. Basically, it was an English dumbass is what a Yankee Doodle means. Funny thing about that is that, like most things, the subaltern group, the people that are getting made fun of, will eventually reappropriate the term and sort of wear it as a badge of pride. So now you've got all these Yankee Doodles running around real proud of the fact that they're English dumbasses. So if you think about the song, Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony and stuck a feather in his hat and called it macaroni, it's sort of a reference to the Yankee Doodle who would ride around and stick a feather in his hat and ride a pony and think that he was really stylish and really up with fashion. Alright, so that's just my little fun anecdote. Now, if we're going to take a look at our sauce, finely chop the Anaheim pepper. Appears to have a little bit of kind of a sweet heat to it.